All right, welcome to the Branchville Borough Historical Society presentation on the Branchville stores of yore. This is, I bit off more than I can chew because it's way too much information for one day, but I promise to be done. You can go get your desserts and use the facilities absolutely by 4 o'clock. I won't keep you longer than that. What has happened is there were these stores uptown, and they're still there. And I thought, oh, there can't be a lot to talk about with all of those things. And there are the stores that go up Main Street on the Brookside. Okay? I started with, it's number 7 is where, I'm going to just call it Bedell's. Does that work for you guys? Bedell's Liquors is number 7. And then the next one is Silverman's / Oars. The next one is Jerry's Luncheonette / Darla's Total Image. The next one is that triple building, 3 stores. That has had so many things in it that I don't have a good name for it. And then the final one is the 5 and Dime, which is now the pharmacy. So those are the stores I'm going to talk about, and I'll try to get through them briefly, but there's some really pretty cool stuff that happened.
What about the one on Mill Street? On Mill Street.
Mill-
On that corner.
No, I'm not talking.
And there was a lumber yard.
I'm not talking about it, Deb. I can't do it.
All right, I just want to know.
I can't. I can't believe how much stuff. It's like when you were in high school and you had to do your senior research paper or something, and you said, okay, I'm going to do mine on the Beatles, and your teacher said, that's too broad of a subject. You'll have to narrow it down. Do the White Album. And I'm like, this is what I did. I did the whole Beatles instead of just the White Album, so I apologize. The buildings on the Culverbrook side, they're old. They're the same buildings, and they're there, and they're old, and they're the ones that were built there. 1890's. Selected Risks boss D.L.B. Smith demanded that his workforce live in town, and that's why we have all these businesses that came here. We have so many businesses in town. The buildings kind of remain architecturally the same. You'll see I have a couple of old pictures that you can tell kind of where they are, but they don't look like that today. And they contribute to our wonderful history.
Oh, that's cool.
That's a cool picture, right?
So that's...
I wish I could be really specific about it, but
building.
obviously
Yeah, I think so.
that's the Cuban Queen right there. And that is what was the pharmacy. It was Jerry Herzenberg, thank you. I have a leaky brain. Herzenberg's pharmacy with very squared off balcony, and it's a very squared off building. Then we have the frontier architecture up here. This building right here, that I have a big picture of. That is part of the triple building. This is probably Darla's. And then, I don't know, this is Oars. So, and I don't know, that's Oars. We'll see where we go with this. A little bit closer look. You notice all those little X'd off supports up there? They're supposed to be decorative, but it's very frontier oriented. So again, that's the first part of the triple store. That's the next part. This is then Jerry's Luncheonette. Oars. Silverman's, right, yeah. Silverman's. Okay. Now it's a little bit further along, a couple of years later. The porch is nice and rounded off on the front, and it's still, well, it doesn't look like that now, but it was nice and rounded off then. This, I think, is number 7. That's Bedell's, I believe. Yeah. And then that would be Silverman's. Right. And that would then, so you go where we're going. And there's Churchill up there, Main Street. Didn't go around yet. It wasn't doing that yet. Now this is kind of when I showed up in town. I'm a transplant. I moved across the street from Pam in 1966. So this is kind of what the stores looked like at that point. The It's Silverman's has their sign, Silverman's Clothing, Footwear. This is Bedell's at this point, but it's new to Bedell's because they don't have their fancy Bedell's wine and cheese shop up there.
Strollers.
Do you think that's Lawler's in the 70s?
Yep.
We'll see. We'll see. The bank, which is Broad Street Books, which got boarded up. I don't know if there was a phone company in there. What was there?
Switching station.
Telephone switching station at that point.
Got the firehouse there.
The firehouse is over here.
Yeah.
And there's the firehouse, all right? And this is probably Gray's department store. And the Branchville Pharmacy, Herzenberg's. So, you guys that are car experts, can you tell from the, I said it was the 70s because of the way the cars looked. Is that what they look like, 70s vehicles to you? Okay. We're getting a late 60s. Is there a Mustang over there? There's three taillights on that?
Mustang is 1964, 65,
Yeah.
so anything after that.
So that's where we are with that. Oh, today, the Main Street Market looks like this. This is number 7. Inside, it's really there's nobody in there. There's a pop-up antiques market there a couple weeks ago, and that's what's still in the windows. I took this the other day. I ran up there and I took it. And then I put my camera against the window and took pictures inside, so we'll see what that looked like. This is one of the things I really enjoy about these buildings, that they still have a lot of old architecture features. They have their old doors, all right? With the transom up at the top, indented in, so I guess you could get in there and not get wind blown and wet. This is the picture where I just put the camera against the window, so tin ceiling, old fixtures. Not super, I mean, they're old, but they're not from the turn of the last century. And the wood floors. This is a real treasure that I found. It's up here on this table. It's a receipt from George Johnson's Palace of Sweets. It says George Johnson Manufacturer, Branchville, New Jersey, 1920, and then there's a spot where you can put the actual year in. This came from number 7. Harry Doremus, who ran the luncheonette, used this as scrap paper. There's a bill on the back of it that he wrote, but it's from his store basement. So this was Mr. Johnson's chocolate shop, which I think is priceless. And he owned it. That's the other thing. Sometimes you get people who have businesses, but they don't own the property. This guy owned it. He owned that building and had a chocolate shop in there. So here's the famous Doremus family. Lee got this picture and he gave it to Jerry Yore, who gave it to me along with all this other cool stuff. There's Mary and Harry and Lee and Harriet. Lee's the odd man out with that name. Mary, Harry, Harriet, and Lee.
Lee's first name is Harry, though.
Is he? Is Harry Lee? There you go.
Is it?
He is a Harry.
Pretty sure.
That's so good. Thanks. So anyway, Lee told me that when his dad came back from, before he went to World War II, he worked for a butcher, Pete Smith. Okay. Stanford H. Smith. Pete Smith. Not to be confused with Pete Schmidt, the barber. We'll get there, don't worry. And so then Harry got drafted and went to World War II. When he came back, he opened up this luncheonette. He got into the building. He did not own it. I can't remember right now. It's on a piece of paper somewhere. He did not own it, but he rented the space and he ran a luncheonette. A lot of these receipts are because he's having people come in and build things for him that he needed in the luncheonette. In addition to his food and treats, Harry had a pinball machine and a jukebox. Dave Bathgate told me that. Dave Bathgate said that Harry, he and his friends would all go up to the store after school because they could listen to music and eat and get ice cream and listen and play with the jukebox. Play with the pinball machine. They ran that restaurant up until 1958 when it got sold to the Lawlers. But then Harry takes his restaurant, his luncheonette, which was known as the Branchville Lunch. He takes that up to where 2 doors down, Jerry's Luncheonette, but he's there first. So Harry Doremus ran Branchville Lunch up there in Jerry's Luncheonette. Is this cutting in and out, or you're right?
No,
Okay,
it's fine.
good. So ultimately, Harry Doremus learns to be a butcher with Pete Smith, comes back from the war, opens up a restaurant, and there's a check here that says I can't read it. Doremus Restaurant and Ice Cream Parlor. So he ran this, and then he has to move because his building gets sold. He gets kicked out. He drags his business up the street 2 doors, runs that for about 8 years, and then it gets sold again. So he left that. He went up and became a butcher up in the Bosch butcher area, but I don't know who was actually being the butcher there. And we have the Bosch butcher sign in our museum because it was in Lee Doremus's basement, used as a shelf for tools, and he took it out and cleaned it up, and we have it hanging up there. And then after it just got to be crazy, he couldn't stay in business because he didn't own the property, so he became a banker. And then he could decide who else could and could not own property. So he became a banker. He worked in Branchville. He went to I think Hardiston or Hamburg, one of those H towns, and then he was in Wantage towards the end of his banking career for Lakeland. So he ended up in a very different career that he started out, which I like those stories. There's the Lawler sign. This is hanging in Mike Lawler's house. This is his grandfather's business. This was before Bedell's bought it. These are the guys that kicked poor Harry Doremus out, but it's okay. As I told you, he ended up having a good career. So that pheasant was not on the sign when it was hanging in town. That's in Mike's living room or kitchen. Michael and Camille Lawler. Mike Lawler is he's a musician. You may know him from his music. He installs Superior shower doors. He owns and runs that business. This is his grandfather, Michael Francis Lawler, and his wife Camille. They came from Kinnelon, and they took that building and changed it from a restaurant to a delicatessen and liquor store. The quick story about Michael Francis and Camille, he came from Ireland, and he stayed in a boarding house in Brooklyn, and she was the manager of the boarding house in Brooklyn, and that's where they met, and they got married, and then they moved to Kinnelon, and then Michael Francis bought this store, and they ran it. Did I write this up here? He used to sleep on a cot in the back, and on the weekends she would come up from home. I guess she had her kids there, I don't even know. Mike would know. And she'd bake pies and work the counter, and then she'd go back home and take care of her house and the kids the rest of the week, and he just lived up here until they built a house in Lafayette, ended up moving out to Wantage. What did I say? I think they lived in Simmons Lake. And their son, Michael, they did a lot of Michaeling. Michael, I knew this 10 minutes ago. The son, Michael, when he was a teenager, he would drive the packaged goods and deliver them all over the place. Crandon Lakes, Hampton, Culver Lake, Beamerville was one of the names. And then he was drafted and went to Vietnam. So that he was no longer their delivery guy. They just were a big part of the business world up here. And apparently, Mike Lawler was telling this story too, that somebody ran into his, the grandfather ended up leaving here in 66 when the Bedells bought it, and was going out and helping other guys start their liquor and deli business. He taught lots of other people how to run the business, which I find fascinating. So that's the Lawler's self-service deli. Then they sold it to the Bedells. Martin and Shirley Bedell bought the business from the Lawlers in 66. Martin eventually got really heavy into fine wines and cheeses, and that was their specialty shop, but initially just a deli. And they did not live here at first, but I don't even know the year that they did move in there, but it was well after 1966, and then they moved next door to Pam Warden. Pam, you're the star of the show today, Maple Avenue.
You're a celebrity.
So that's where they lived, and they raised their daughter, and Martin used to bring, I lived across the street, Martin used to bring asparagus from his garden and tie it to my mother's asparagus plants, which never produced asparagus, just to make her happy. So they were nice. They were nice folks. Later on, that's a fancier Bedell sign. It says wine and cheese shop, the finest in the land. In about 2005, George and Francis Delgado bought it, and they took over that wine and cheese business and made it even bigger and better. So they really were busy there. And Fran did catering out of that little kitchen in the back, which was not much of a kitchen, but she was able to make that work. And they did so well that they were able to put a barn up on the old Yore farm up on the corner of Morris and 206. So that's now George and Fran's newest shop. So that's what happened there. And as I showed you in the beginning, I don't know if I have another one. Nope, I'll go back. The building right now, it looks beautiful, and all these buildings have apartments in them. That could be a whole other story. Who lived above the buildings? That's a whole other story. And some of it's pretty juicy, but I'm not going there. So that's where these guys, they can rent out their apartments and make their money. That's like, you know it's going to be there, and then they can run their businesses out of it. Now we get to number 9, the famous Yore's Clothes for Country Living. Notice it says, I'm going to be skipping around, but notice it says, formerly Silverman's. I mean, Wayne Orr has paid homage to the Silvermans since day one, so he didn't really take away from their name. He wanted everybody to know it was still Silverman's. Let's see what I got here. Oh, I just find this really interesting. The 2 walls in the front they're attached. The 2 different stores, they have a shared wall. Even though I don't know how the surveyor does that, but that's how it looks. I took that picture Friday. So, Isaac Silverman, he built this store in 1897. He had been a peddler, a traveling salesman. He put his wares on his back or else in a wagon, if he had a wagon and a horse, and he drove around. And the story goes that once upon a time he got caught in a blizzard and couldn't get home to his wife and kids for a week. And he said, that's it, I'm going to have a store. Then he rented space in a store across the street. I don't know where that was. Rented space in a store on the wrong side of Main Street, obviously. And then by 1897, he purchased the land from, does it say that? I know where it came from. I think it came from Samuel Smith, DLB's dad. Anyway, he purchases this land, builds a store, and then he was no longer a traveling peddler. He had 9 kids. He and Anna had 9 kids, and Sam was firstborn, and then Sam took over from his dad, but he never got married until he was like in his 50s because he had to do all the work to maintain the family's business, or they wouldn't eat. So he was the provider for the family. In 1971, this is my favorite story of this slide. Sam Silverman wants to retire. He doesn't sell the building. He sells the business to, as Wayne puts it, I'm sure her name could be found, but I'm not going to look for it, some hippie woman who painted the inside orange and ruined the business and went under, and so Sam took it back. And then he called on Wayne. He said, come on back. No, what I forgot to tell you is Jerry Orr, who's 10 years older than Wayne, his brother, worked for Sam Silverman for years, and then Wayne came to work for Sam for years, and then, Wayne went on his merry way, got into some, I don't know, he told me, insurance probably, I don't know. And then Sam Silverman says, you gotta come back, you know how to run this business, come back. So, he buys the business, and he and Lydia run it, and then he buys the store. The building. And Wayne will talk to me. Do you know Wayne? He talked to me. It was great. I learned so much. He told me about how Sam would take him on road trips to the vendors out in Penn. He started going to New York City with them, but then Sam goes, oh, those men are not being very nice to us. So he took them out to Pennsylvania, and that's where they got more knowledge about the vendors that Wayne was going to have to be using. And so they learned the business from the master and continued it just as is, and it's still there. Wayne and Lydia bought the building in '81, and they've been continuing the tradition. Their family members have all worked for them in one way or another, at one time or another, and it's still there. There are some, there's oars. Notice there is, no, that's the wrong time. I don't want to show you that one. I don't have anything to say about that. Oh, this I love. Again, Wayne kept the history of the building. The name Isaac Silverman. Silverman is still in that door. I took that the other day. That's still there. I never noticed it. I'm standing inside the front door, and I'm looking, and all of a sudden from the inside I see a backwards Silverman. I'm like, what? He goes, yeah, I didn't take that down. So I ran out front and I took the picture. And again, the same good old door. And he has so many old things that you could say, well, he just didn't want to spend money and get new things. But honestly, he kept things or tried to replace them with timely things that were a part of his life there. And one of them, the floors are the floors. Those floors are 130 years old. And then the storage drawers, I never really noticed them. I've been in there tons of times. And I'm like, oh, look at those drawers. And then I said something about these cabinets. Oh, wait. Good story about this. When these lights are not original to the store. When Sam had the store, they had lights along the side that were electric because there was electricity in Branchville back then. And they were beautiful, but they disappeared somewhere along the line. So Lydia, when Wayne and Lydia got the store, Lydia went to Kastner's auction and bought light fixtures to hang up in the top. They don't work, but they look great. So it really is cool. The old display cases, and I said, are these from Isaac? And he goes, no. Isaac never would have display cases. He just had tables of stuff on the floor. And so these came from Sam. I'm like, okay. But they're old. They're old. That's my story of Silverman's. Oh, what I want to say about that though, that building was built by Silverman, Isaac Silverman, owned by him, owned by his son, and now owned by the Orrs. That's the only people that have owned it, and it's been the same business. That's nuts and wonderful. I just want to point that out. All right, 11 Main Street. This is, yes.
I don't think Silverman's has a bathroom in it.
The bathroom is upstairs on the
yes.
second floor.
Yes.
There is an outhouse in the back. We are not going to discuss all the ins and outs of this. This is a tumultuous story of the Silverman Orr outhouse. But there is a bathroom and plumbing. There's running water in the apartment upstairs.
Does the Orrs live upstairs?
No, nobody lives up there.
Wayne actually asked the Silvermans for permission to change it to Orr's also.
Oh, Suni just said when he did buy the business, Wayne asked Sam Silverman, is it okay if I change the name? Respectfully, is it okay if I change the name? So he really honored his elders with that. He also told me that he didn't often ask too many questions because you're not supposed to talk to your elders unless you're spoken to. But occasionally he would say, Mr. Silverman, can I ask you something? And he'd say, yeah. One of the questions he asked him, you can ask Wayne this too. Mr. Silverman, can I ask you something? Sure. What do you do with all your money? And the answer is lengthy and interesting. I'm not going to tell you. So, what?
Question.
Yes.
When I was in one time and I was buying something, he was at this really old-fashioned cash register and he was acting really cool with it. And I said, oh my God, that's old. He says, it's just show. So he has this, is that true? Does anybody know that? It didn't work. He just acted like to when certain people came in that he was clicking it in, but it was just an antique.
That fits the bill.
Okay. Yeah.
That makes sense. That fits the bill. He liked to keep the history of it going. So this is another interesting place. It has been a lot of different stores. And right now it's Darla's Total Image, and it looks beautiful. It looks beautiful. But keep that image in mind when I go to some of the other pictures of it. It was owned by the Ellett family. We have an Ellett family member right here in our front row for over 70 years. In the early deed, the first deed that I mentioned in this, I think it's and everything seemed to happen in the 1890s. So it was noted as the Ellett Storehouse, and so it probably was a dry goods store for a long time. There were a lot of them. You'd think how many of these stores can you have in town, but there were a lot of them because, I don't know, nobody could stock enough stuff for everybody, so you picked your favorite store and went there and got your stuff. So it was a dry goods store for over 70 years. But in the 40s, this man, Pete the Barber, Schmidt, not to be confused with Smith, the butcher. Although if you ask Bill Bathgate, Pete Schmidt kind of was a butcher when it came to haircuts. Bill said he had old barber tools. Instead of having an electric shaver, he had these snippers, and he said they weren't sharp in my hair. He's always pulling my hair. And Dave Bathgate said, well, that was my first haircut, was at Pete the Barber's up there. So it was Pete the Barber's, and then it wasn't, and now it's back to being a haircut place, which I find kind of cool. So when Harry Dreamus got kicked out because Lawler's bought his restaurant spot, he moved his restaurant up here. And I think that there are some things that needed to be done to make it a restaurant. But these papers are mostly from the early 50s when Harry Dreamus was down in number 7. And then in 1960s, Jerry Van Gordon comes in, and he's running it. He doesn't own it right away. He buys the building a little later, but he's running the business. He bought the building in '69. I'm pretty sure he was running the business when we moved here in '66. So he didn't buy the property until '69 from Ardella Ellett. So the Elletts owned it. The family, it just kept getting passed down. The Elletts had some property in town. They're the people that, if you remember from my Branchville Church Hill Cemetery, they own the property up there too. So that's the Ellett. We could have been called Ellettville. This is Jerry's in the late 70s. Big front porch on the top floor. It was kind of fancy. I don't know if you can tell, but the staircase now comes this way on the building. This has a porch on this side, and the staircase goes way down the back of the building. So it was redone. I call that the frontier style. And then Jerry ran the business for about 30 years, serving coffee and toasted muffins, corn muffins with grape jelly. And Cheryl Howard was one of his waitresses. I was one of his waitresses, but Melanie was the one. But I didn't marry him. But Cheryl did. Did you marry him? No.
No, short story.
Okay, tell it.
Yeah, I worked during the summer, and I talk about John's dad all the time.
because he would come in the morning and have a cup of coffee and an English muffin, which I think cost 75 cents, and he tipped me 50 cents. My father came in, never tipped me. But always, Mr. Newcomer, in there, tipped me 50 cents off a 75-cent purchase.
Oh, that's great.
When we were buying our house, we couldn't talk to anybody in Branchville, they wouldn't talk to us. So they said, you have to go to Jerry. And Jerry told us everything about our house.
He knew the history of it? Okay.
Yeah, and then he sent us to somebody else that, because we were newcomers and
Oh, yeah.
we're, apparently you had to be part of the family in Branchville in order to live in Branchville. And we were outsiders.
Well, we came from Long Island, so I don't know. We were
That's
more
what Jerry told
We're
us.
outside, yeah. But he was a big part of the community for years and years. His luncheonette, and then even after not running the luncheonette, he ran the town. He was our mayor, so he really did a lot for us. And I had to give Cheryl a shout out. We used to call her the mayor and the mayorette because she sat by his side a lot. She'd give him hell, but she sat with him a lot, so it was good. It was good.
Debbie,
Yes.
what's Jerry's last name?
Van Gordon, Jerry Van Gordon. I'm sorry. I should put that. I'm gonna put that in my slide after the fact, but it'll be there. Jerry Van Gordon. Then it became the Calamity Cafe. After Jerry didn't own it anymore, it got sold to Patricia DeSario. It was only this for a couple of years. I don't have recollection of it. Wasn't around long enough to get into our brains. But there it is, in living color. Lynn Cleaners. Wow, this is now we're getting to some of the really cool stuff.
Yeah, that's very convenient.
Darla's, 2003. She buys the building, haircut, and the building has had a lot of makeovers since her ownership, but so have her customers, her clients. So we all look good. My kids used to get their haircut there. I don't think I ever did, but she's been taking good care of Branchville for a lot of years. So another great business in town. This is the store that I can't get over. The fact that, and this doesn't have like a Lynn Cleaners, you're just like, oh yeah, Lynn Cleaners. This was Lynn Cleaners, the bigger part of it. And you'll notice that it's a square, I'm going to show you again in a minute, but this facade with the 3 points, the 3 roofs, is rather new. That's what it looked like when it was built. Isn't that wild?
That's the picture that was on Facebook that everybody was thinking was someplace else, and
Yep.
it just kept saying no.
Yep. That's what it was. Furniture and Undertaking by the Van Hawkins. Because of course, if you're going to build a table, you can build a casket or vice versa. So, Bill Turin is here. County historian. Bye. Of course, and the Van Hawkins didn't own this. It was owned by Robert Westbrook. He's in that picture. This is Carrie. Oh, jeepers. This is Carrie Van Hawken. This is Robert Westbrook. Oh no. That's Mr. Van Hawken. This is Robert Westbrook. This guy's sticking down on the. I was gonna say he's a lot shorter, but he's probably just down on the sidewalk. And then I don't know who Miss Bessie Murphy is, but she's noted, and nobody knows who those kids are. But this big square box of a building was the furniture and undertaking, and then it had a flat roof part and then a peaked roof part over here, which you can't really see in this picture. But that's the original building that was built. So, wait, let me go back. Samuel Smith, again, D.L.B. Smith's dad owned that. He's the guy that owned the it's now, again, Selected Risk, that big building in the center of town, Gray's department store, the bank building. That was Samuel Smith's dry goods store. Again, we had a ton of them. And we all made money. So he owned a lot of property, and he sold it to Mr. Westbrook, who built this thing, I think. There's that boxy building. It was Lynn Cleaners, and the flat top, and then Thelma's Place. I don't know if you can tell, if you can read this. I happen to know this says T-shirt heaven. It doesn't say that. Maybe I wrote it down somewhere. It's a T-shirt place, and then Thelma's Place. Thelma's Place is a women's clothing store, and then it was Allie's. That was Palomay's. Yeah. So it had, and this place, I haven't talked to Aggie, but this place was also a dog groomers. It had a couple of different dog groomers in there, but Aggie was the one that I used to go to. So here are some of the stores that were located within these 3 buildings. We have the Bosch Butcher, Albert Silverman's Law Practice. That's the little brother of Sammy. The younger brother. The George Fields Cleaners. Was that in the same part that the Lynn Cleaners was in?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the George Fields, no relation to Bobby Fields, or okay. George Fields Cleaners. Molly Barnes Beauty Salon or beauty parlor. I'm going to talk about that for a second. Lynn Cleaners is there. T-shirt Haven. The Dog and Pet Grooming Place, Thelma's Place, Allie's Place, and then Coates Jewelers. So this little crazy building held a lot of.
Eagle One, military surplus.
Oh,
Yes.
the military surplus store.
Cake pops.
Cake Pops. Yes. They were there for a hot minute. They were delicious.
There's an eyelash girl in there now.
Yeah. Pretty Girl Inc. or something. Yeah. And say again.
Veronica is the owner
A Pretty Girl Inc. And the window treatment shop is there. That's that place has a lot of different shops. It's an owner who has that business, and that's one of the places he has the business. So they donated to Miss Branchville. I just want you to know. Thanks.
Yay!
Yeah.
They own a nice farm, Race Tree Farm on Augusta.
Oh.
Yes, they live in our area.
Oh, so they're locals, that makes sense. Because why would you put a shop up here?
They have 11 locations.
Okay, yeah, 11 locations. It's a big deal. And I know some of you have gotten your windows treated there. Not I. This sign is hanging in the windows over across in the room next door. That's the butcher. And I don't know where he was there, but I don't know which part of the building he was in, but
The farthest step.
the farthest, where
The smallest one.
Thelma's Place was, and where the Coates Jewelry.
Where Coates Jewelry
Okay,
were, yeah.
okay. So that's where his shop was.
That's where he started.
Okay, here's a little bit about the deeds of who owned this place. Samuel Smith sells it to Robert Westbrook in 1897. Westbrook, the estate, sells it to Carrie Van Auken. Now, you saw that picture of Carrie Van Auken in 1910, so she was running that store for a number of years before she was able to buy it. Then, an estate from the Carrie Van Auken situation sells it to, here's the interesting story. I love this. John and Molly DiVincenzi. Now, John DiVincenzi ran the Branchville Confectioners, which is now Steiner's Attic. It was a confectioner's store. We have the counter and stools in our museum. So they ran that, but he didn't own that. The Garrises owned the confectionery store, but he and Molly, his wife, buy this place. Okay? Within a very short period of time, Molly DiVincenzi's name is not Molly DiVincenzi. It's now Molly Barnes. So she gets the store in the deal, and then she's married to Joe Barnes, and he now gets put on the deed by Molly. So, and she ran her haircutting business out of there for years and years and years. And there's probably a lot more juicy gossip that could be said about what went on while the DiVincenzis and the Barneses were switching locations of their business. And that's what happened there. And then in 67, Molly sells it to Renee Hedden. Now that's a name I do remember. I remember there was a
Lydia's
Pete
mother.
had,
They
yeah.
lived up.
Lydia's mother.
Lydia Orr's mother.
I don't know what their business was up there, if they just owned it.
What was it? She said it was Lydia Orr's mother.
Yeah.
Renee.
Oh, Renee was
Renee.
Lydia Orr's
She worked at
mother.
Grand Union.
Yes, yes, and she was
Well, there you go. That's
And
why I
French.
invited you all here. Renee is Lydia's mother,
And
yes.
Renee lived in the, yeah.
Up
They
there.
lived, yeah.
Okay. What, did she run something there, or did she just live
No, she
there?
worked for the little, factory that made the baby clothes down
Down by Hughes and Fletcher's.
Yeah, yeah. And this, yes.
When I walked to
Yeah.
school, you could hear the sewing machines.
But it was head
Because
mouse.
it-
Any of that.
I can't, I know you're saying something German to me.
Sylvia Urensgaard.
Yeah.
Buren's
Sylvia
Guard.
Buren's Guard.
Okay. That was the name of the company, the clothing store?
She had the clothing shop.
Okay.
That was right across from Lou's Glass.
Yeah,
Yep.
I know where it was. I always thought they made lingerie there, no?
No,
Baby
baby
clothes.
Before that though,
Like that.
yeah, what you just said, what was her name?
Sylvia.
Sylvia Beauregard rented an apartment for my parents when we lived on Broad Street. But she started in those 3 stores that you see sometimes in a postcard in the triangular building where the post office is.
Yes,
She
yes.
had a middle one, and it was called Sylvia's Panty Shop.
Sylvia's
They made
Panty
that.
Shop.
And later on, then she brought it down to where, across from, where the glass store was.
Right, right. I remember when the sewing was happening there. I remember when it was a business. Down by Hughes and Fletcher's and the brook. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Good information. I'm gonna have to watch this video and rewrite my story. Anyway, then Renee hadn't sold it to the Alvin Liebeskin and Nathan Rosen, and after that, the deeds got too hard to trace, so I just quit. But the family that owns it is called, or the organization that owns it is called Bird Family. I don't know if that's their name or what they like to do. I don't know.
Going back to Rosen, wasn't he the lid cleaners?
Yeah, Nat Nadell.
Wasn't he,
Nat
what?
Nadell.
Rosen was Lynn
Did he own
Cleaners?
Lynn Cleaners?
Maybe he did.
Yes.
Maybe he did. That would make sense, because it's about the same time that Lynn Cleaners was
They
there.
had the same one in Newton.
Lynn
Dad was
Cleaners?
from
Yeah.
Buffalo.
Oh, okay, so John's saying yes, because we were talking the other day that they didn't clean clothes there. You'd hand them off, and then they would take them back to Newton to do the laundry, the dry cleaning. Yeah,
After George Fields, then it was Lynn.
okay. And Rosen's own Lynn's. Wonder who Lynn Rosen was?
Nat
Never
Nadell
know.
Rosen.
What?
Well, the Rosens, Nat and Adele owned that. They were friends with Dad.
Okay, you're gonna have to give me more info. And then there was this middle room that was dog grooming. I don't know if Dogs R Us and Bark and Purr were the same place, but that's where they
That was
were.
Aggie. She had to change the name because of Toys R Us.
Toys R Us, she had to change.
She had to change. She was forced to change the name.
Oh, it was Aggie?
Yeah, it was
And they
Bark
made her
and Purr.
change it to because of Toys R Us?
Yes.
Come on. Like Toys R Us even knew we were here? That's crazy. How'd they find us? And then it became this new facade. We got the peaked roof. And 15 gets a real peaked roof. So instead of being box, flat, and peaked, we got fake peak and peak and peak. So it's still Lynn Cleaners there though. Good old Branchville. And now we get to number 19. Oh, I'm gonna hurry up. All right. William Ellett probably built this. Her relative. It was known as the Ellett Storehouse, and it was noted in a deed to Washington Depew in 1903. So William Ellett sells it to Washington Depew in 1903, and in that deed there is a comment where you have to have a right of way with sufficient width to admit passing with a load of hay. So I took that picture on Saturday. It's still there.
Yeah.
There's a barn in the back. So the blue house that's there, I imagine was the Ellett house. I don't know. I'm making that up now. Totally making that up. The Depews sold it to Don and Mildred Howe in 1948. It became the 5 and 10, and it was big, wide tables with all the stuff in it that you paw through and look through and pick up what you needed. Then Don sold it to his brother Arthur Howe. Art ran the store, and boy did we know him. What are you doing there? Don't let that slam. Put that down. He was very aggressive. I don't know if he's aggressive to grown-ups. He was aggressive to kids, so we're kind of afraid of him, but it's all right. So thanks for a good story. And those doors still, somebody said to me this morning that they still push instead of pull. You try to walk in today and you're like, I've been my whole life and I still don't know how to open this door. So, and then the sign on it, the sign said, don't let her slam, and then he would yell at you if it slammed, so you had to be careful. And they still have the nice old doors. Here's something, when I was going through the deeds, I'm like, are you kidding me? The Laniers bought this? So then I saw Pat Lanier in church. I said, Pat, you own it? She says, yeah. Casey wanted to buy it. When the house was selling it, Casey said, I'm going to buy that. I like running that 5 and 10. And he loved it for 2 years, and then it became more than he could really deal with. So they ran the 5 and 10 as a 5 and 10. And then he sold it to Arnold Sullivan, and Arnie was our friendly pharmacist. He's great. He ran that place for years and years. Took good care of my mom. So, but we still got the old doors, the same indent doors, which I find just fascinating. And he retired in 2008. And nowadays, I can't remember the name of the man that owns it. But anyway, it's still full of interesting items. The family truck is it's like a 5 and 10.
I can't figure out the steps.
No, it's hard. It's hard to
One
get in
side
and
is
out.
slow and the other side.
We went uphill. So, and the door, you still can't open the door, and it still can slam if you're not careful. So. Oh, look at that. I ended without a big thank you. I was in such a hurry. I don't have my thank you slide at the end. Well, it was a lot, and I got I'm over by 30 seconds already. It was fascinating, and I just want to say that I just get the biggest charge out of putting these pieces together and talking to people, and when you guys add stuff to it, I go back in and add it into my notes, so it's really cool. And we do live in a cool spot.
Can I do the other side?
Debbie, someday I will. Well, the other side just got torn down. That's another thing we don't want to talk about today. Don't bring up the other side of the street today. There's too much going on up there. So.
I know that.
But thank you very much. And if anybody have anything else you want to add, I'm happy to listen. Yes.
I was in the next house up the street from the pharmacy, and the front door still has a little doorbell that you twist. And it had started out obviously as a one-family house, and then divided into two-family house, up and down for each side. And a good friend from the library lived there for probably 40 years on the right-hand side of that house, looking. Kathy House, her name was.
Okay.
And she's now in place in Spartanburg, Knoll Heights.
Okay.
But
So as with so many of those cool old houses, they divided them up. Yeah.
You know, a lot of people.
Right. I like those bells.
The front door had a twist.
Yeah.
Like that.
You have to really give it a shot to make the bells go up. So. Yeah. But anyway, thank you all for coming. I'm sorry that. And there's tons of food.